Hello, hello, hello. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Today we're going to talk about house rules for dogs. Very sexy topic, I know. We've been thinking about this as we're considering bringing home a new puppy into our home. And so it got me thinking more about the rules, and I've started to see how we've kind of let the rules, we've been a little lax with this little monster down here. um, so yeah, so I've just been thinking it through. Thought I'd talk it out with you guys and see. Have you set house rules for your dog? How's it going? Do these tend to work? I am gonna go into the common rules that people might make and the variations that you have to choose from, and then how to really make them stick, because sometimes they don't work out exactly how we planned. And the cool thing about having house rules for your dog is that you get to decide. There's a lot of mythology out there about what you should allow your dog to do, and it's a lot of it is plainly nonsense. And so I hope to, if you have been feeling like you have to have your dog do this or not have them do this, I'm here to say you can have your dog do whatever you want. You get to make the rules because it's your house. But I want it to work for you, and work for you and your dog together. So hi Jesse, thank you for being here. Hi Crystal. So let's do this. First of all, let me start by saying that um, you could bring a dog into your house and not make these rules. And I'm almost certain that some people live just perfectly fine with a dog that way. But dogs come, and some of them just tend to be naturally easier to live with than others. And so I think most people and most dogs would benefit from having a set of rules just set from the outset. um, and this is not only to keep your dog safe, but just for you guys to live more harmoniously together, keep everybody happy. And by having defined rules, it can help your dog not get confused. They can learn what you expect of them and what they can expect of you. And it's a nice dynamic. So, secondly, the best time to decide what rules you should set for your dog is the day your dog comes home, or before they come home rather. That's the best time to decide. The second best time to decide is right now. So if you haven't, hopefully this will help. And thank you, Impartial Geek. The shot looks amazing. He just helped me adjust a lot of things. We hung some new stuff up here finally. So yeah, it's getting there. Oh, not to mention the lighting. So thank you. All right. Okay. We'll get into what type of rules you might play around with. But also, in addition to setting them as early as possible, the other thing to consider is that however many people you've got living in your home, whether it's just you and a partner, you've got a roommate situation, you've got kids of varying ages, you should have everybody who lives in the household and shares space with the dog sit down and decide the rules together. And this is important because dogs learn best when there's consistency, right? So you can, if you've got one person who's like, okay, I've decided what the rules are, and they tell everyone else what the rules are, a lot of times there might be some disagreement. And if the kids are like, yeah, okay, mom and dad, like, sure, that's the rules, but then they don't actually follow through, then you're not gonna get the benefit. The dog's not going to learn as quickly or at all really what those rules are. So having everybody agree, having everybody sit down and making it a group effort can really help to just make sure everybody's on the same page and that everybody wants the same thing, has the same goals. So I think it's a good place to start. So let's see. Jesse says house rules are great, but hard to always enforce, and that's true. Oh my gosh. Even if it's just you, even if there's only one person in the household and that's the person who decided the rules, it's hard. Not just because, I mean, because we love our dogs and we want to give them stuff, and it's, yeah, it just, it can be hard. And it really, it takes kind of understanding what a big difference being consistent, even when it's hard, makes. That yeah, because it really, like, even when they give us those sweet puppy dog eyes, and they really want that food off your plate while you're eating dinner, if you're just like, oh, like, just this once here, okay, like, oh man, you have opened the floodgates. So yeah, no, you're right, it's really hard, and the more people you have, the harder it is. So that is why, like, at least starting from a place of having everybody agree can really help. So where do we begin? Okay. One category of rules that you might need to think about is, first of all, where's the dog allowed? Some people prefer to just give the dog free roam of the entire house, and that's perfectly okay. Like I said, you get to make the rules. But if there are spaces in your home that might be unsafe for the dog, say you've got like a workshop of some sort, or if the basement is unfinished and has, a lot of stuff going on, or if it's any room really is not dog proofed, and it's hard to keep dog proofed, you might just make a rule that doggy is not allowed in XYZ room. That's perfectly okay. I'm thinking about a friend who's might be here today, Rebecca. I don't know if you're watching, but say hi if you are. She and I were talking through a behavior issue with her sister's dog, and I don't know the layout of their house, but the dog is very reactive to seeing people in the driveway, and I'm thinking, is there is there a way that we could maybe, if it's a foyer or an entryway or whatever room the front door is, can that room be blocked off? Can that be a no dog zone? Just things to think about, like, where is the dog allowed? Kitchens are often, actually, I like to have let the dog have access to the kitchen, because usually it's a non-carpeted room, and for potty training that's a really nice space. But at some point you might decide that the kitchen is a no dog zone because maybe you cook a lot and there's risk of dropping knives or tripping over a small dog and they could get injured. Just thinking about ways to keep them safe. Usually safety is the biggest concern when deciding, like, where should the dog be allowed. Rebecca says hi. And and Impartial Geek likes to give free roam, but I do keep the doors. Oh wait, I'm losing the comments. I do keep the doors to the rooms where he can get into trouble closed, unless my girlfriend happens to leave them open. Guilty. Yeah, I don't know. Like, just dogs aside, I kind of just like to have doors open. I don't know. Having spaces feel more open is like, it's good for my brain. But that's okay. I'm working on it. I've tried. I think I've gotten better at closing doors. Because I do think that's a good idea. Like, for Dizzy, with us, like, there really aren't any spaces that he's not allowed at all. But most rooms we'd rather only allow him in there when we're present, just to make sure that he doesn't find something that he thinks is particularly nice to chew up. Like David's studio, there's a lot of wires that could get tripped over, and like equipment that could, if it fell, it might get broken. We don't want that. So he's never allowed in there if we're not in there. So another consideration when thinking about rules like this. And here's another thing is, like I said, rules are good to set from they start to be enforced the day the dog arrives in the home. And if it's a new dog, whether that's adult or puppy, my preference, and because this can really help with the house training and chew training, and just generally making sure that they do understand all of the other rules that we're going to get to. The spaces where they're allowed, it's really, really good idea to set yourself up to give them only a very small space at first, and then gradually expand as they start to understand your rules, right? Because it's so much easier to gradually give them more and more space than it is to just see how it goes, make it a free-for-all, and then be like, oh gosh, he's not ready for this. Let's make it small. Like, that's a lot harder for the dog. So I do recommend starting off small with a new dog and gradually giving them access to more and more spaces. Um, Impartial geek, yes, but when my space is left open, I catch Dizzy with my undies in his mouth. Yeah, Dizzy, he likes to. I mean, this dog is like he likes to just find something and come and like use it as a. It's like an invitation. That's his way of getting us to play. Is he'll just pick up something in his mouth, and we've got baskets of toys around the house and also just toys laying around, but they're not always like the closest thing. And when he's in his I don't know, when he gets into this mode, it's just like, I just have to have something in my mouth and then get the people to play, you know? So, yeah, so doors closed will help with that, and I will work on that. um, but yeah, I mean, because if the doors aren't closed, we really have to make sure that stuff gets picked up, and we're not, that's really hard to always be on top of too. So, yeah. Um, Anybody else here? Have you set a no dog zone in any parts of your house? Yeah, because if we get this puppy, or when we get a puppy rather, we're gonna start off and it's gonna have its puppy pen, and I think that it would be a good idea to um, start off by only allowing the dog in spaces where there are no carpets or rugs. Just it's a good it's a good idea. Or if they are allowed it in a carpeted area, they have just pottied within the last 10 minutes, and two, actively supervised, meaning our eyes are on that dog. And only for short periods of time, just to make sure that they're not having potty accidents, because more potty accidents happen, the longer house training takes, and I'd rather not spend too much time on that. I want this dog house trained. um, and it's funny. We're getting a small dog, and the impression that most people have is that smaller dogs are harder to house train, but we don't really know why. The speculation is that possibly it could be a small dog thing, and that they're just harder to house train, but it could also just be either people aren't as motivated to get through house training because smaller dogs equal smaller peas, which is a smaller mess, and so we are not as motivated to get that house training done. Or it could be that people are just more permissive with small dogs. I don't know what it is, but like, we're getting a small dog and I'm like, this thing is gonna be house trained. So yes. All right. So, okay. Rule category number 2 is furniture. This is a big one. And it is notoriously one that people are like, especially if it's their first dog, they're like, okay, no dogs on the furniture. That's the rule. And very quickly, it's a free-for-all. Dogs are allowed on the furniture. This one is one of the harder ones to enforce because dogs want to be on the furniture, right? But this one, there's a lot of room to play with this, right? First of all, if the dog is allowed on the furniture, there is no concern about dominance or anything like that. That is all myths. But usually, the reasons that you might not want a dog on furniture is just that they're not ruining the furniture. They're not getting hair all over the furniture or drooling on the furniture. I don't know. So you can make this yes, dogs are allowed on the furniture. No dogs on the furniture at all. You can say, okay, dogs allowed on this furniture, but not that furniture. Maybe they have one, like this is the dog couch or the dog chair, but we don't allow them on anything else. It could be that dogs are allowed on the furniture, but only when invited. And I actually heard a new one recently. A trainer that I follow, she has a rule that dogs are allowed on the furniture, but not with chew items. And it's really cool to see her, like, she posted a video of one of her dogs, like, got a bully stick and hopped up on the chair, super cozy, and she was like, I don't think we have chewies on the couch, and the dog looked at her, took the chewy, and just hopped off. Okay, no problem. Like, that can be a thing. But the thing to consider, and like I said, furniture rules tend to be harder for us to enforce, but if you want one of those in between rules to be the case, just be aware that you're gonna have to be really consistent, because dogs learn much faster when it's 100% or not at all. Black and white rules are a lot easier for the dog to understand. So if you do want, for it to be certain furniture and not others, or only when invited, it's one of those types of furniture rules. It might make it a lot easier to start off with black and white, no dog around the furniture, and then once they've learned that rule, then allow them, like, okay, now that you've understood that, like, we're going to give you this chair, this is your dog chair, or now you can start inviting him up, but he's just never allowed when, so again, with the giving them access to rooms, it's a lot easier for us if we start off limiting them more and then gradually give them more access. It's so much easier for them to understand, and it's going to be less of a battle for you as you like try and teach them. So yeah. We actually, I've never really been like a no dogs on the furniture kind of person. But in the last place I lived, I had roommates, and the couches belonged to the roommate, and so she didn't want dogs on the furniture, so that had to be the rule. So I got used to enforcing it because it wasn't my couch, and so it's a lot easier for us now. Actually, David, tell me, like, I don't even remember exactly why we decided that Dizzy's not allowed on the couch. I mean, it is a brand new, expensive couch, but I don't know if that was really the reason why we said he wasn't allowed. I think it was more, we would like to be able to travel with Dizzy and take him to other people's houses and Airbnbs and hotels and things like that, and we want his baseline to be assume you're not allowed. So we figured we'd set the precedent at home. And so we have a no Dizzy on the couch rule, but he's allowed on beds and stuff. So, yeah. Let's see. Here's another thing to consider. The traveling, going to other places, and remembering that dogs don't generalize well. So if it's a free for all at home, it's going to be a lot harder to tell them, like, well, you're not allowed on the couch here, buddy. But also, if there's going to be times when dogs are muddy or sandy or dirty or wet, or just in a state that you wouldn't want them on furniture, and so it's good to just at least understand, if you want to allow dogs on the furniture, that's okay, but keep in mind that they're not going to really understand that they're not allowed on the furniture when they're muddy, so if they if they are muddy and they get on the couch and create a big old mess for you, it's not really fair to get mad at them in that instance, because that's been the rule. They're allowed on the couch, no problem. Or you can choose to either, if they're muddy, make sure that they, muddy dogs stay in this room, and you have to enforce this with gates or crates or tethers or whatever, or put a furniture cover on things. Yeah, those are really the options. Either keep the couches covered, just anticipate that you can't get mad at them, or make sure that you're ready to manage a dog. Yeah. So Rebecca says, can't miss all those amazing cuddling opportunities. there are plenty of moments that I'm on the couch, I'm very comfortable, and it would be really nice to have Dizzy up there, but I've kind of we've really created a space, the floor next to the couch, to be kind of comfy for us. We've got pillows we can bring down there and blankets, and so if I really feel like I need to cuddle with Diz right now, I'll just get on the floor. I'm not too good for that. So, yeah. So yeah, furniture rules. Think about them in advance and think about, like, how you might have to handle that. And then yeah, be very clear and try to be as consistent as you can be, because your dog will learn faster that way. And thinking about those times when they might have muddy paws and stuff. What about dogs jumping on people? This is like one of the issues that gets asked about the most, is how do I get my dog to stop jumping? And I think this could be a whole this could be a whole episode all on its own. So I don't think I'm gonna really get into like too much into it right now, but think about this. When we have a puppy, it's like, I mean, they are just, puppies are like the cutest things on the whole planet, right? And you just want to let them do, we let them get away with whatever because they're small and they're not hurting anything and they're just freaking adorable. Um, but then they grow quickly, and then at some point we're like, oh, you are too big to jump on me, or you're too big for whatever. And that's really unfair to dogs. So jumping is a big one that is so much better for them, for you, if you set the precedent from day one, even when they're itty bitty. No jumping. um, and so, yeah, decide. You know, there are, I know lots of people who are totally fine with their dogs jumping on them, and like I said, your house, your rules, your dog, your rules. So that's fine. My preference for my own dogs is no jumping, but it is very hard to enforce. This one's even harder to enforce than the house, than the rules that really kind of stay in the house, because we take our dogs places and people want to meet our dogs, and the people don't know how to enforce the rules all the time. Like, I mean, if I could wish on a star, it would be for every person to not greet and pet and praise jumping dogs. Like, that would help me so much. um, but alas, that's just not possible. So this one's really hard to manage. It's really hard to enforce because dogs meet people who encourage jumping. But that's the world we live in. So it can really help your cause if you start this early and are very consistent about it, at least as much as you can, as much as you have control over. Yeah. So, yeah. But so, well, I will say this. I will say this before, you know, we can dig more into it in a later episode. But think about what's reinforcing the jumping behavior, right? If a dog is jumping, usually it's because they want to be closer to your face. They want you to look at them, pet them, talk to them. They want attention. So if you were giving them any of that stuff when they jump, you're actually teaching them to jump up, right? And it's so hard, and this is why it's hard to enforce. But if they are going to jump on you, you have to pull all of that back, right? And heavily reinforce them for doing anything else but jumping. If they are just walking up to you and they still are on, you know, 4 paws on the floor, or if they sit and look at you, get in there and reward that dog like crazy. And yeah, so that's, ooh, jumping's a hard one. So yeah, how about door privileges? I don't know if that's the best way to say this, but this is one that is, I don't hear about as often, but it can be really, really helpful for the dog's safety, for your safety too, actually, especially if you've got a bigger dog. And what I mean by door privileges is just, have you taught the dog to wait at an open door? You know, it's, and this is one you don't have to enforce, of course, but it can be helpful because, you know, when we open a door, most dogs are like, oh my gosh, it's so funny. Like, I used to walk dogs for years, and I worked in a lot of buildings with elevators and dogs in and out of doors, and you see this even more, like, it's even more pronounced at an elevator, but like that that thing, they're so eager to get through doors that you'll have, like, these are my elevator doors, right? You'll have the dogs like smooshing their face through the door as it opens slowly, and it's like, that's how dogs are at doors. They want to get through so fast. And so that can be an issue if you've got door dashers, where if you open a door, they're just out. You know, if you live near a road that has any kind of traffic, like, that puts a dog's safety at risk. If they are used to just running out the door, and there's times when you might be carrying stuff and they like knock you over. That's why I say with the bigger dogs, this is could be more helpful for your own safety. Um, yeah, so teaching them early that when we open doors, you get to go through if you wait is a really nice rule to have. Um, yes. Oh, one other thing, like if you've got a door dasher who just like bolts out the front door when you open it, like that can scare people. you know, being in public with a lot of dogs in my job, you find there are people who are scared of dogs, and I feel really bad when one of my dogs is acting in a way that like frightens someone. I mean, it's hard for me to understand because dogs are my life. um, but I do understand. Like I know what fear feels like, so I don't want to put anybody in that situation. And especially if a dog's off leash and seemingly out of control, that can really scare people, and you don't want to be like that neighbor. So things to think about. Um, and then how about the last one I'll talk about is like the begging or dealing with human food scenarios. Um, I don't actually like the term human food because dogs exist because humans gave them their human food, So it's kind of it's like a weird distinction to me, but just, we'll call this begging for simplicity's sake. And whatever begging looks like, sitting in front of you while you're eating and looking at you, actually putting paws on the table. Dizzy has we've this is the one we were just talking about a second ago. Is Dizzy used to be really good about this because I never gave him food off my plate, but we kind of let the rules slide, and he's really pushing that boundary. So he's gotten to the point where he'll like stick his nose, he'll like start sniffing our plates, and if we let our guard down, he will actually start stealing food. He never used to do that, but we haven't been consistent, so this is what we've got. So we're gonna tighten the reins on that one. But this is because it's food. This is really one that it's like if it happens once, it's really hard. It's really hard to go backwards. So consistency with this one is like paramount. And yeah, so if that sort of behavior bothers you, be sure not to give them food from your plate. That's pretty much it. Like I'm all for, dogs can have stuff that we eat, especially like any plain like carrots or potato or sweet potato or I don't know, green beans. Lots of dogs love that stuff and they can have it. But it's better for you if they don't have it from your plate. Either save it for later or reward them for being on a mat or in a crate or just on a designated spot can really help, so that you don't have dogs stealing food from you. Especially like we don't have a dining table. We either eat at the bar or on the couch, and like the couch, I mean, it's pretty much at dog nose level, so it's like it makes it hard for him. So we'll really be doing him a favor if we are more consistent about those rules. So and this is fun, you can actually practice your tossing skills if you designate. So what I think we're going to do with Dizzy is, because we're trying to really like beef up his mat training or his station training. So we've got like a specific towel, and we're going to put that in a certain place in the living room, and he can have food, and it could even come from the plate, but only if he's on that spot over there. And so you can practice your food tossing skills. We've actually, Rebecca, you were there at Clicker Expo. We went to this behavior training conference, and one of the like fun games that they have is it's like oh shoot, what's that game called? The like beanbag tossing game. Oh my gosh, I know there's a ton of names for that, but it was basically like that. But we were tossing treats, or we were tossing gummy bears actually, and because that's dog training is a physical mechanical skill, and learning how to toss accurately will really help your training. So cornhole, yes, thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, so you can practice this, and it's fun for you, and the dog will love it, so that could be a really fun way to like encourage the people of the household to direct their dog treating behavior in a productive manner. So really, really good thing to consider. So finally, um, that's actually it for dog rules for the dog. um, so I don't know. Did I miss anything? Is there anything that like might be helpful for a lot of people that I just haven't thought of yet? Um, Let us know because we're bringing home this puppy and I want to be ready. Um, yeah. But there are another category of rules that might be worth mentioning, and that is rules for the humans. Um, keeping the dog human bond really strong and making sure that there's a lot of trust there is really important, and it's important for getting your dog to cooperate in a pretty much any other situation you might encounter. So it's really important, and how we humans behave with our dogs is really it's really important to keeping that trust intact. So especially when you've got children in the home, it's really important to teach them how what are appropriate ways to interact with the dog. Young children especially, like they should be taught, that it's not appropriate to pull on the dog's fur and tail, and that dogs don't actually like, in most cases, to be pet on the top of the head or very roughly. I like to teach kids to use one hand only and, collar to tail. Just pet them on the back or possibly if they're on their tummy, rubbing their tummy, but not touching the areas that dogs are often uncomfortable with. And especially with being picked up, and especially with small dogs, they're not, even though they are way cuter and might look like little stuffed animals, they're not. They're living creatures, and they grow into adult living creatures and with very strong preferences, and so their feelings should be considered about when and how to be picked up. And with small dogs especially, they should, just because they're small doesn't mean that we can just like grab them anytime. And that's important for children and adults to know. So yeah, so handling your dog in a way that doesn't exacerbate or cause any fear or aggression issues, really important rule for the humans. And it could be really fun to teach a small dog, instead of just grabbing them when we need them in our arms, is to teach them a jump up cue. Gives them some agency in their own life and their own decisions, and keeps that human dog bond very strong. How about leaving an eating, chewing, or napping dog alone? A lot of dogs are made very uncomfortable when we approach them when they've got something that they consider to be very valuable, or to wake them from a nap. I mean, yeah, I get most of us are pretty might be pretty grumpy when we're woken up when we're not ready to be, and dogs are the same way. Some of them can be, so it's a good just rule of thumb to let a sleeping dog lie. That's right. That's the thing. And also leave their food and chewies alone, unless you are the adult and you are actively teaching them to be comfortable with this, which is a whole other thing, which I'm excited to talk about, which I might get into next week. No, maybe the week after. I love talking about guarding, and I love training surrounding guarding. That's one of my, I don't know, I just think it's really fun. But rule of thumb for household members is just leave the dog alone when they've got stuff like that. Do not hit or yell at your dog. Maybe that sounds obvious, but it's never appropriate. There's never an appropriate time to hit or yell at a dog. It teaches nothing, and it will, again, degrade the trust that you've built up, and you don't want that, because broken trust is really hard to rebuild. So do not hit or yell at the dog. And like I mentioned before, which we've been really, really bad at, is pick up anything you don't want chewed. dogs are born to chew, baby, and they can't really be faulted for picking up stuff that's just left around. So it'll save your stuff and save your sanity if you just get into a better habit of keeping stuff picked up. We do a pretty good job, but we're just fully admitting we're not always perfect. And so when Dizzy does get something, it's like, okay, that was my fault. I'm sorry, my underwear is on the ground. um, so yeah, and then finally, just in the same, just thinking about how to set rules before a dog comes home. If you haven't brought a dog home yet, or if you're getting a new dog, oh hey Diz, you coming up here? Let me say hi. High five. There's the boy. Yeah, so just something that might be good to discuss if you have gotten the family together and you're like, okay, we're deciding the dog's rules. Another good thing to discuss in that moment might be delegation of responsibilities. Talk about who is going to be in charge of, hi sweet pea, who is going to be in charge of feeding the dog, and who's in charge of walking the dog, and who's in charge of letting the dog out to go potty, and who's in charge of picking up all the potties. This one can cause a lot of like inter-family strife if it's not clearly defined. And you can always, like actually any of these, you can always change it later. But at any given moment, it's really good to be clear, and then whatever you've decided, be consistent with it until you decide to change it. And this goes for those responsibilities too. It helps. These are the human rules because they're helpful for us humans, not to get in arguments and not to let anything fall between the cracks if people have jobs, that are clearly defined. So good idea to discuss this ahead of getting the dog too. So. Safrina, oh hey, hi! I'm glad you love this. This is, I'm starting this. I'm new to live streaming, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. And yeah, so talking about house rules. So yeah, we're gonna get we're pretty good, David and I, about enforcing most of the rules that we've had already with Dizzy, except for the feeding issues, which we're gonna get better at. But it's just we're in a moment where it'll be good for us to talk about like what rules do we want to set for this new puppy from the start. And like I said, we can always give a dog more freedom, much harder to take it back. So yeah, this is all helpful for me to like talk through too, just so that we feel ready for a puppy. Like even though I've been training for years, like I still feel like, oh my gosh, okay, I just want to make sure I do everything right for this dog. So yeah, I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself, but but it's helpful to talk it out with you guys. So thank you so much for being here. That is all I have to say about my house rules. I'd love to hear what rules you guys have in your homes, and especially if there's anything that I didn't cover today. If there's anything I'm missing, I want to know. So let me know in the comments. And yeah, so just if you've been here and you've been watching, just to let you know, we are actually going to visit this puppy with its new litter on Friday. And so we're going to be on the road at 1 o'clock. So the live stream on 1 will be maybe a little bit different, maybe just on the fly, but we're going to try and check in and just let you know how our little trip is going. So, okay, cool. Lovely to see all of you. Thank you again for being here. Really makes me feel good. And I hope it's helpful for you too. I'm going to go entertain this little man. And we'll see you on Friday. All right. Bye, everyone.